untouchable, yeah, she's unstoppable. Tick, 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 hearts on split, split, split. Watch her move, boy, she's your meltdown hit. She walks in like a savior draped in radioactive silk. Promises the future, but her balance starts to tilt.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Always takes me a minute. Apologies. Dina, welcome. Alrighty, here we go.
Every word she speaks. She dances through collapse while her empire springs a leak.
We're up and running. Looks good. Hope your day is going good. Hope you had a good weekend. It's the 23rd of March, 2025. I'm Dana, of course. You can call in at 709-589-4406. We're in Canada. We'll take calls from Canada, United States, New Mexico. I don't know. I was able to take text messages from anywhere on the planet. Alrighty, looks like we're good. We got Snow White in our show tonight. What about that? How crazy is that? Not for the reason some people might think. This young actor is being harassed, claiming that she's the issue. Snow White has I don't watch TV, so I don't know the slang, but has flopped, I guess, at box office. So there seems to be a campaign against her. We'll go through that right away. She's not the writer, she's not the producer, she's not the editor, etc., etc. She's just one of the actors, one of the many actors, right? Not the lead actors, but let's cover that and get through it. How about that? Is there such a thing as being able to cover it? Anything right away with this show? Our last video got cut 4 minutes after the 12th hour. We're the only site on the internet that the videos get edited after 12 hours. Nuclear. Nuclear has no friends. Click around if that's your thing. It's probably not going to register on my particular site. I gained 1 subscriber in the last month or something. My other site with 25,800 subscribers. That's what I had for 5 years. Never gained one, never lost one, because nuclear has no friends. There's a story that she's to blame and she's a terrible actress, and the list is going on and on and on and on. She didn't get the job because she's terrible, right? She got the job because she's really good at what she's doing, apparently. And I can't watch children die. And she had tweeted, I got it there somewhere, it's just a short story. She was concerned about Palestine. Being an actor, that's definitely a no-no. The Zionists are not very happy with that. I'm not sure if she's Israeli too, or Jewish, but her significant other lead is... Always remember Free Palestine. And so that was the announcement, basically, that Snow White trailer was coming out. And she had put that underneath it. 7.7 million views. So that irked the Zionists, I guess. Well, Ziegler, which certainly sounds Jewish, don't it? Bore the brunt of speaking up for Palestine. Bore the brunt for speaking up boycott, divest, and sanction. Call for a boycott of Snow White for featuring Gadot. And she is, the other one is a ex-military, ex-Israeli soldier. So, you know, she's hurt a lot of Palestinians, right? She most likely killed a few. But Ziegler's comments comes as a particular polarizing time in Hollywood, where taking a stance on Israel and Palestine can lead to heavy scrutiny and loss of employment. And so there's a lot of bloggers, including gamers and stuff, but these are clearly organized attacks, are attacking her, saying she's the issue with Snow White. She's just one of the many actors. She's not the writers, not the producers. So what was going on? I didn't understand this had happened right at that point. So I had a little look at it. I was like, wow. Because I have another story about Israel bombing a funeral. They had killed somebody and their wife and kids that were significant, apparently. So might as well bomb the funeral. Crazies, eh? I mean, is that like the world sees it, but your media is a big public relation firm, and they're not going to have a descending voice. We're taking a stance in Israel, Palestine, leave to heavy scrutiny and loss of employment, because there's quite a precedent apparently. Still, she insists on using her platform to support Palestine, despite the inevitable fallout. And so I happen to research the word fallout daily, right? Her comments also place her in a delicate position, because I cover nuclear for... Particularly as Snow White gears up for release alongside a Gadot, a vocal supporter of Israel, and she's the evil witch, right? How this dynamite will play out in the public's eye remains to be seen. So this story was the 3rd of October last year, almost the anniversary of a staged event in Israel, right? The Jerusalem Post, which is hardcore Israeli, but does have some descending voices. Gal Gadot, which plays the evil witch or something, called for haters, because she's a Zionist Israeli ex-IDF, calls for Snow White boycott. You'll get the story in a moment. For Snow White boycott, co-star Raquel Ziegler, my apologies if I butchers people's names, that's anything I'm really good at sometimes, who would voice support for Palestine. An Israeli, Gal Gadot, who portrays the evil queen. It's quite convenient, isn't it? One of the people that served with her was this guy. He bragged on his Facebook account that he killed 13 Palestinian children. So he wasn't targeting Hamas, was he? And that seems to be the normal. He was quite proud of it. I threw up when I first read that story, because how can you shoot 13 children, right? It just blew my mind that somebody could do that. And then brag about it on social media and get 40,000 thumbs up. Israeli Air Force pilot bombs a funeral in Gaza, 15 dead. Again. Flying high in the sky with your head in the clouds. What would he say if someone bombed his loved one's funeral, I wonder? Man, you disconnect when that's your ideology. You're no longer a human when you think that way. Family and friends of Dr. Wassim Mubarak and his family had gathered on Thursday to commemorate the life of the doctor, his wife, and 3 children who were killed in an Israeli airstrike on their car. Imagine using a bomb from a fighter jet on a car. Just try wrapping your mind around that statement. That's crazy. Some crazy stuff. Israel has taken into custody thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, mostly men and boys. Mostly boys, because the adult population, around 5 million of them, are in refugee camps outside of Palestine. And those refugee camps are barbed wire with IDF guards with German shepherds walking around the perimeters. But some women and girls as well, and they can't get a bank account. They can't apply to go to university. They can't, because they're nomads, so to speak, right? if you're in the refugee camps. They got no problem keeping 5.6 million in refugee camps, but they can't get rid of 10,000 Hamas. Even today, they barely killed any Hamas, but they sure killed a lot of Palestinians. There's probably twice as many dead. That's the gallows laugh, by the way. There's twice as many dead under the rubble. A U.S. social media star kicked out of KSI versus Fury boxing match for wearing a Free Palestine t-shirt. No dissenting voices allowed. Imagine what you got to hide when you have to hide all the time. After writing in his... Remember this story? We actually covered this. I don't really cover it. You know, I have many times over the last number of decades covered Israel. Their crimes against humanity. That's all they seem to do. A generation of hate after generations of hate for the Palestinians. Now they got the perfect generation that is just switched off. They're so caught up in the social engineering that you can't reason with them. After writing an anti-Israeli letter, Harvard students are doxxed. So the Israelis, sympathizers, so to speak, if not the Israeli military themselves, have big boxcars with screens on it so they can go and so-called name and shame anybody. And they'll just equate them with, what is it, anti-Semitic? They're not even Semitic themselves, the Israelis, for goodness sakes. They come from all over the world. They're not from... They weren't born and raised here. Greenpeace ordered to pay $660 million to oil company by a judge, prompting a bankruptcy fear. Greenpeace, like, you know, I had shared a picture with Greenpeace. With Greenpeace. And we're doing a show early tonight because I'm tired and I don't know if I can stay awake because I don't stop working. Isn't that the Einstein material that you work really hard, you get tired, right? And when it comes to nuclear, if you don't work hard, you can't keep up with it. That's the problem. It's such a bizarre industry. I apologize, we're on YouTube. Remember, YouTube took 4 minutes off my last video. You'll find that up on my the replacement video. I just posted it. It might not show up for another hour or so. The full video, 2 hours and 26 minutes, just 4 minutes missing, is up on my BitChute channel, Dana Durnford. Environmentalist Dana Durnford. But just put in Dana Durnford on BitChute, you'll find me. Greenpeace ordered to pay $660 million to an oil company. I guess I'm next, am I? That's their new rule now, is how to get rid of any dissenting voices. No protest allowed. No protest allowed. Hi, Joe. No protest allowed, eh? That's Hollywood, little minders. Anybody speaks there, they censor all the little monsters. You know the monsters, right? Just in there. You can't say anything about Israel. I know. I can't say anything about the Zionists. The 9-person jury, North Dakota, delivered Wednesday a verdict in favor of energy transfer at Texas-based oil joint. They'll tie this up in litigation for another decade of it. Let me go to the screen. Where am I? Okay, here we go. I apologize, because normally my equipment takes 5 people, not Dana, to run my equipment and audio and everything. Greenpeace was found liable for defamation, trespass, nuisance, civil conspiracy, among other acts. But they found him guilty of everything. an attempt. It's called normally they call this stuff like a slap suit, where they just tie you up in litigations. In an attempt to prevent the construction of a pipeline more than 8 years ago, the group previously warned that it could face bankruptcy if it lost this case. It warned? Or they just... Because Greenpeace normally, who blocked me on every one of their Twitter accounts because I gave them this... I sent this picture to them and asked them to retweet it. I'll show it to you. Criminal that I actually am. The horrible criminal that I actually am. It didn't come together the way I was supposed to. Did I go to the wrong one? Oh, I am on the wrong one. Dina, smarten up. Here we go. Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see all the zombies were out there attacking the girl instead of the producers and the editors. There we go. So I sent this. I actually sent the video because I made this picture a decade ago or something, and what it is just a fraction of the journalists. And if you've been around, you've seen the video 1,000 million times since then. I literally play it almost every day. These are just some of the media pretending they're on top of Fukushima Reactor 4. Which had 9 reactor cores and the fuel pools, they're gone. And that's what you're looking at is the bottom of the infrastructure. The bottom of the 19-story, 65-meter, 190-foot building. And it extended quite a few stories underground too, right? But you can see it kicked out all of his guts in the bottom on top of it. Reactors and fuel pools were at the top of the building. So I sent that to Greenpeace. And they blocked me. I can't remember. It was Greenpeace Canada, Greenpeace United States was the first one. And so then I tweeted it, and they took the picture down. I asked them just to retweet it and get a conversation started saying, clearly they're not on top of Reactor 4, so what's going on? That's all. I wasn't pushy or rude or obnoxious. I hope I wasn't anyway. And so then I start tweeting it each day to another international, Canada, United States, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and the list goes on. That I tweeted to every Greenpeace out there, Greenpeace International. They all took it down. They all blocked me from their site, right? Just asked them to share it. So I don't care if Greenpeace goes away. They deserve to go away. They refuse to talk about it. And it's not like I didn't give them every opportunity. And then my site was full of documentation. It was easy to digest. The activist group accused Energy Transfer of taking aggressive actions against the protesters and desecrating Native American burial grounds, which is the standard. That's the standard for the nuclear industry and the oil industry. You see that worldwide symmetrically. The oil company claimed that Greenpeace was engaged in a vast malicious publicity campaign, which is what the nuclear industry and the oil industry is, against them in an attempt to tarnish its relationships with banks funding the pipeline. Well, usually it doesn't matter what you say. The banks are going to do whatever they're told to. In the wake of the verdict, Greenpeace International Executive Director Mad Christensen, which is Icelandic, isn't it? It's an interesting first name, though, Mad, pointed fingers at the Trump administration. Let me get my Geiger counter out of the way for a minute. Yeah, Christensen. I had a really, really good friend from Iceland for years and years and years. Very smart, too, man. I'll tell you what. We are witnessing a disastrous return to the reckless behavior that fueled the climate crisis. Well, the climate crisis was fueled by, at this stage, 8 decades of unmitigated releases from 1,000-plus fuel pools worldwide, nuclear meltdowns, nuclear dumping, incinerators at every nuclear power plant. It's just been a frenzy for the first 40 years of releasing it into the environment unmitigated from all the reprocessing sites, like the Muonic former Soviet Union, still doing it. So is La Hague in France, and Sellafield got 1,000 contaminated buildings there. All of these facilities, by the way, every nuclear plant is surrounded by farms as far as you can see. That's the quickest way to get heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, and many, many others, is to eat food from a nuclear site or eat anything now after Fukushima's pulse event. Deepen environmental racism. Environmental racism. That's over my head. I don't know what the hell that is. That's a new one on me. Put fossil fuel profits over public health and a livable planet. It's always been that way. But the climate crisis is caused by radioactive fallout. Let me just explain that, because it's hard for some people to appreciate. Nuclear is unique. I'll tell you that much. So there's anthropogenic man-made pollution, for instance. And so, automobiles and everything else, generally the majority of it doesn't travel very far because it's very heavy. But the microscopic particles, the fine particles, the particulates in the physical atoms, don't make plumes that covers the whole planet from the industry. They do, however, add, like the Asian pollution and the prevailing winds blows it across the Pacific Ocean. And it is included, a fraction, right? It is included in the pollution indexes, say, for California, for several months during the heavy prevailing winds from automobile and factories and everything else, coal plants, whatever. But there's only a fraction would make it over 1%, maybe 1.2%. Still a lot. But that's about as far as it's going to make it. And then it kind of hangs out over there with the patterns they have around California, because you're talking about the east and the west kind of air currents and oceans are meeting there. And so the best way to look at that is like this here. So this is a model of radioactive fallout from Japan. Now, radiation is the only model that covers the whole planet in particulates. This particular model is 23 days of radioactive fallout to my right. That's reactor 4 to your left, and the detonation had ejected 9 reactor cores. One of them was a plutonium X oxide reactor core with about 60,000 pounds, or a lot more, who knows for sure. But at least 60,000 pounds was plutonium X oxide fuel. And this, like the emissions itself are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. So it's a big issue. But it doesn't end there. It has another attribute with think of an invisible snowstorm that after 23 days covers the whole planet, but you can't see it. The snow never melts, the snow never goes away. But you would see it, right? But with radiation, you can't see it. And radiation is much worse. Because that model is only based on a fraction of the inventories that were lost at one building, let alone out of 4 of them. So there's 36 reactor cores lost. Each reactor core is about 100 Chernobyls because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium. Chernobyl's a graphite reactor. It's completely different. Chernobyl was a brand new reactor. The list is very big, and they never had fuel pools at the top of Chernobyl, but here, and Chernobyl, they closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. There's still 400 closed today. None of them should have ever been open because they were only looking for one isotope. For the biggest byproduct, which happens to be curium isotopes, doesn't go away for 250,000 years. The one they looked for was cesium. And they didn't look very hard because it doesn't go anywhere for 300 years, right? Like it doesn't turn to radioactive lead. Even radioactive lead will still destroy chromosomes and DNA with just the pulses of energy. And that's the problem with the plumes of radioactive fallout. Each atom, unlike atom from coal, gas, oil, it's just carbon anyway. It's just going to make more plants, more trees. But the atoms from nuclear, they pulse energy almost at the speed of light every second. Cesium, say 137, will do it for 600 feet every second. So imagine a visible snowstorm covering the entire planet, pulsing energy each atom, and you put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. But a single atom will pulse energy 600 feet. And so you got an invisible snowstorm. This has been going on for 80 years at this stage, 84 years, but that's what global warming actually is, right? It never goes away, and we are adding to it every day, right? And it assimilates itself into everything, right? All the trees, all the wood, all the plants, all the biota, and eventually sterilizes all the species. They stop reproducing, and now we're in that moment of history. Again, Greenpeace refused to cover Fukushima. It refuses to acknowledge Fukushima meltdown. And when I sent them this wonderful picture, which articulates the issue quite well, quite powerful, because if you finally have a debate where they have to answer for why they pretended they were on top of a building that don't exist, and it being a nuclear meltdown, with 9 reactor cores missing out of that building alone, maybe we could have a future, but because these people exist, we can't have a future. And I'd like to know what was the 4 minutes they chopped out of my video, my last video. They chopped out 4 minutes after 12 hours. My videos will always change. No other videos on YouTube does that anymore. The company touted the verdict as a win for the Americans who understand the difference between right to free speech and breaking the law. Not like they're shouting. They're in a theater, full of people shouting fire, 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 and a bunch of people got trampled to death or something, right? Like everybody, we need oil, right? Everybody gets that. That's Greenpeace is meant to keep the demonization of oil so you can promote small modular reactors in the nuclear industry, which never gained any ground since 1996 or something, right? It's the same amount of gigawatts now as it was in the early 90s, so it hasn't gained any ground at all. And every nuclear power plant is hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools. The fuel pools, the problem with it is they're splitting atoms. That's why nuclear is dangerous. You'll never hear that anywhere else, unfortunately. The company also touted the verdict as a win for the Americans who understand the difference between the right to free speech. Well, like the Americans' right to free speech is different from most on the planet, right? And you've all heard the saying, I might disagree with what you got to say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. Right? Because inherently, that's the value of free speech, is you're going to have a debate. You're forcing a debate. And so if you're if you're not going to have a debate and you're going to use it as a weapon, for instance, there's laws against that, right? You can be held accountable. But activism, typically the only way activism has ever got noticed is it has to go out and break laws. It has to get arrested, right? That's how the average activist used to get their name out into the public. The public had no idea they existed, and then they got arrested. And typically by blocking traffic, and police tell them stop blocking traffic. They say, no, not doing it. And then they say, okay, you're under arrest. And then the media runs the story, and that's how they actually get noticed. That's how their name spreads. I run an educational program. And one of the things we do for kicks on the side is we'll cover the news cycle. And that's what we're doing tonight, hopefully. Keep my ass in gear. The company also touted the verdict as a win for Americans who understand the difference between the right to free speech, blah, blah, blah. It marked a colossal financial blow for the organization. Well, why not get rid of them? They're useless. But, I mean, they got tons of lawyers at their beck and call, begging to work for them for free, which could now face bankruptcy. I couldn't even get a lawyer when they ran a slap suit on me. It was strictly about giving me gag orders, right? According to the latest records, Greenpeace is roughly $40 million in revenue and 190 employees in 2023. Activists slammed the U.S. court's decision ordering Greenpeace to pay millions to an oil company. It's a dangerous precedent. Is not. So now you can't protest against the big industry because they have, and the industry will write off the money their lawyers cost them in their taxes. So what happens if people like me and you now, the industry decides, well, we're going to get rid of them, we're going to use the same law that convicted Greenpeace as a precedent against me or you? Because that's what's going to happen, right? It's not a slippery slope because the industry won't even hesitate to do it to you. Look what you've done to me all these years. And so I was like, well, if you're going to do shit like that to me and destroy my life, that'll backfire on you. First off, because when people look up who's this bastard Dana Durnford is, they're like, Jesus, he's actually a pretty good guy. It's reasonable. So that backfires. And then the other thing is, when you demonize me in my own community, as they've done to me, and everywhere else worldwide, well, then I can't really do anything on any work on nuclear. That works against them because I have to work, right? I have to do something to keep busy, and I don't watch TV and stuff like that, so I'm a voracious reader and learner on top of that. I might have screwed up my glasses. Hang on. Might have to wash them. Yeah, I'm going to have to give them a freaking wash or something. One more try. Maybe I'll get lucky. I'm not really notorious for getting lucky. And there's been crazy. There are crazy activists out there, right? What was it? Rebel Extinction, or something like that. These are clearly controlled opposition. Greenpeace, Rebel Extinction, a few more of them. How many of them are willing to give up their cars? Activists slam U.S. court decision ordering Greenpeace pay millions to the oil company. Climate activists criticized North Dakota judge decision ordering Greenpeace to calling it a dangerous precedent that threatens the future of environmental activism and the right to protest. Yes, because they're going to use it as a precedent, right? Well, we got Greenpeace. Here's our precedents. Now let's take down Dana. Let's take down Kevin. Let's take down anybody. After 2 days of deliberation, a jury on Wednesday held the environmental group guilty of almost all counts and ordered Greenpeace USA to pay $404 million to the oil company and roughly in Greenpeace International and Greenpeace Fund Incorporation. Greenpeace Fund. Yeah, they're big. And their job is to displease people like me and you, right? Energy Transfer framed the verdict as a victory against what it calls lawless activism. Lawless activism. So the industry is long demonized and vilified and usually use the police to beat the shit out of the activists, right? Its attorney, Trey Cox, argued the case proved Greenpeace has abused the right to protest. Well, Greenpeace, that's their job. They're the controlled opposition. Their job is to make a big... usually the media, whenever they run a story about Greenpeace, will have a donate button to Greenpeace on their site. So you tell me what's going on. Greenpeace denied the allegations, calling the lawsuit a blatant attempt to bankrupt environmental defenders and silent dissent. Greenpeace are clearly not environmental defenders. Or they wouldn't have banned my picture of me from all their Twitter accounts. The group said the ruling was part of a broader corporate effort to erode free speech and stifle environmental movements. Yeah, of course it is. So again, just to remind you, my last video, my videos, when they get to 12 hours, will usually gain or lose seconds to 2 minutes, right? This one lost, at 10 hours, I still had 2 hours, 26 minutes. and 5 seconds. And of course at 12 hours it changes to whatever the new number is, and they cut out 5 minutes or 4 minutes of that video. And that was the 736 Fukushima mystery pictures released in 2021. We went through every one of them. And then, who knows, I'm gonna have to go through that video, right? I'm gonna have to do the comparison, find what they chopped out, and do a whole presentation just on those pictures. And maybe do that every Friday for a couple of months so they don't do it to me again. So hopefully tomorrow I'll have the courage to sit there and suck it up and get through that. But I did post the video up at BitChute. I don't know. Just let me hang on a second here. I don't know if I can find it here. Maybe. I think I got it. Holy shit. I think I got it right there. Hang on. Oh, yeah, it's up. Now, because the video, the numbers that I show you, right, are going to be a little bit different than the number from recording, because I'm recording right now, right? But I might start the recording just after the show starts. I might end it just before the show is over, or vice versa. So let me bring it up for you anyway. I'll get there. So I only gained 1 subscriber here in the last 4 months. I'm verified, as you can see, and I paid them money to get up on their main channel, but they did put me on their main channel. Fukushima, so I stopped paying them, right? Fukushima anniversary is 226 minutes and 13 seconds, which is what it's supposed to be, right? And they chopped the shit out of it and left took 4 minutes. So it was 200, because it's going to be different numbers from the internal recording, because I usually start the recording, because my videos will start in a little blank spot. Then I hit record, and then before the video's over, because I have to do a bunch of closing after we close the closing sign, I usually stop the video before that. So there's going to be a few 10 seconds or something discrepancy typical. So they knocked off 4 minutes after video. Dirty, rotten scum. That site's got 800 videos, 870 videos on the site. Let's keep it rolling. Rolling. Stupid amount to get through. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, we didn't do the poll yet, did we? Let me come back over it. Is Fukushima radioactive fallout behind the death of tens of thousands of whales and billions of birds and insects and everything else and humans an extinction level event? Dana, what are you talking about? Oh, just a good old-fashioned extinction level event? Let me show you what that means. So I've launched research expeditions for 6 years after Fukushima, because we had a lot of documentation of the radioactive fallout at 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels of cesium-137. This was the model-based here that I showed you earlier. This model is based on 31 days. So when the model stops your timer at 31 days. 31 days. So the whole planet is covered. And that's, carbon doesn't do that. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't do that. Pollution from industry doesn't make stuff like this, right? This is just nature that does that. So I launched research expeditions for 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. And because Fukushima happened, it really did happen. There was 4 reactor buildings with a total of 8 reactor cores, and the fuel pool's 1 in the reactor. So 36 reactor cores were lost, and each one is at least 100 Cheronobyls. And so the species you're looking at now are exterminated from Alaska. Here we go. So the species to your left are gone. The species to your right is what's left. It's just kelp, cabbage, kelp, weed. So 2011, there was an incredible, vibrant, healthy, wonderful coastline to your left, right? Now it's an extinction event. There was 700 algae also in the tidal zones, and there was around 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones and hid away in those algae. Now there's only 2 or 3, kelp, cabbage, kelp, weed. Normally I could never put my Zodiac on a beach because sea urchins, and I used to pick 20,000 of them a day as a commercial diver when I was young and feisty. Now I'm old and broken. So there's incredible diversity in the tidal zones. At low tide, it's very uncomfortable, very dangerous to go from low tide to the high tide because you're trying to walk on species, right? And you just don't want to do that anyway. But they're very, very slimy stuff going on there too. So it's very difficult to do it. Very dangerous thing to do. Those species are gone. We went back for 5 extra years to see if the species recovered. They didn't. So normally if you plow in a healthy coastline like there, you dig all that up and put it in a transport truck and drag it away. The species from both sides will just fill up that gap. Right? The diversity was incredible to your left. It was amazing. So the species would just fill in the gap from down deeper and from both sides. It didn't happen after Fukushima. Fukushima wiped it out, and because that's the effects radiation, it never goes away. And it's hard to do it justice in pictures, right? But we spent 6 years doing the research expeditions, we being me, and the people that helped me, support me. And so I went out and I just meandered through the 27,000 islands, which is British Columbia, for 4 to 5 months a year for 6 years. And to our absolute horror, because I'm very familiar with that whole coastline, I've lived in 300 days a year average when I was a commercial diver on that ocean. Yeah, I was hardcore. There's no doubt about it. Bodies are swollen by cancerous tumors. An unprecedented mutation allowing cancer in muscles, shellfish. It's just a kelp and everything else getting cancer. To spread from one species to another like a virus is beyond surprising, said a scientist. So the species to your left got wiped out because they all got cancer. It just spread from one to another. That's a straight... No, they died because of radioactive fallout destroyed their ability to reproduce. It sterilized the ocean, right? Remember, I'm not going to go down that road, but a glass of water would normally have 1 billion creatures. And 900 million of them would be the eggs and larvae of the species to your left. And the fish and everything else, right? And the other 100 million, 75 to 100 million, was the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. They're at the surface. They were wiped out. They were at the surface of freshwater and seawater. They were all wiped out right away because of the way a plume works, right? So this is 19.5 days, 468 hours. Alrighty, let's get back after it over here. Anytime we're ready. Almost there. You know, there's unusual mortality events for all whale species. I was kind of hoping my page would jump on its own, but it didn't. We left right there anyway. Somewhere along right there. Or we were down here, right? Sorry. Ah, yes, robots to retrieve highly radioactive sandbags at Fukushima plant. James put out a kick-ass video about this stuff. And I meant to download it so I can chop it up and use the footage tonight, and I didn't get it done because I ended up going live early because I'm burnt out, and that's okay. So there is no tanks. Like, the tanks are there, but they're empty. Everything's going directly into the ocean. If you fill up the tanks with just a bed, because they're pouring water over nuclear meltdowns. If you fill the tank up with that stuff, it settles on the bottom, and the neutrons will start a chain reaction, right? And so it'll just burn a hole in the bottom of the tank. You'll have to abandon the site because you have this water running everywhere. That's at multiple sieverts per liter. And 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. You're talking about, like they acknowledge, at least 2.2 sieverts per liter of beta. You just can't have beta. You got to have alphas and neutrons and gammas. And so you're talking about 6-7 sieverts per liter. If you took a gallon of it at a subway and put it in the wall of the subway where people go down the stairs, at these numbers, everybody goes down those stairs or up those stairs will die that day or that week forever. It would perpetrate that kind of carnage. And so they're allegedly going to retrieve moving sandbags. We've talked about these a lot over the years since Fukushima. They allegedly put bags of zellulite, which is supposed to filter radiation per se, right? No matter what you put there, it's gonna filter radiation, right? Because all atoms are the same size. It's not just going to filter anthropogenic man-made, because these atoms are static. So they're like electrical charge. They actually stick to everything. They pulse energy every second and radiate whatever they're stuck on. So if it's a tree, all the leaves that fall off the tree are radioactive. So it's a big problem when your whole country has that particular attribute, right? That's why you're not seeing any spiders in the woods anymore, because they can't attach to the trees and bushes. We'll begin removing sandbags. So they're calling them sandbags here. That absorbed, but normally in these stories they're calling it zellulite, bags of zellulite for allegedly filtering radiation. Starting as, if you filter radiation and the bags are so radioactive you can't get near them. And in this case this is true. As early as next week, so boom, right out of the blue, TEPCO is like, oh, well, we're going to remove these bags. We've heard that story how many times over the years? At least 5 different times. Located underground section of 2 buildings. One of the stories says it's in the bottom of the reactors. Have remained untouched since the 2011 disaster. The worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a single reactor. It was a single reactor core. It was a new reactor, and it was graphite, totally different than Fukushima. Fukushima is 36 reactor cores. Each one of them is about 100 times the volume of plutonium uranium that was in Chernobyl's reactors. And Fukushima reactors are 4 decades. So to suggest for a second, because if you go look officially, it'll say Chernobyl's the world's worst nuclear accident. Because that's how much influence they have, and you'll see it everywhere, right? Even Wikipedia will try to tell you that. If you go and change it, they'll just fix it a few hours later. Back to their propaganda. Radiation levels on the sandbag surface, that's an interesting frame. way to frame it, reached 4.4 sieverts per hour, or lethal dose for humans. Now, it can't just be 4.4 sieverts per hour. If there's one bag there, yes, right? But when all the bags, it's got to be hundreds and hundreds of sieverts there. Radiation levels on the surface reach 4.4 sieverts an hour. First off, how can you quantify that? How did you get something in there to measure it? Because it's a lethal dose for humans. Robots can't work there either. Well, 3 sieverts is a lethal dose for a human. Media reports 2,850 sandbags need retrieval. And these stories were all on unknown media, as we've probably never covered before, which is a crazy thought, isn't it? Because we cover just thousands and thousands of different medias. So TEPCO has only confirmed that the total weight is 91,000 pounds. When you do the math, I gotta cut. See if I can cut this stuff going. We do some math actually coming up. Yeah. So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sieverts in that room. Gee, my throat's dry as a bone, eh? Let's keep rolling. £91,000. 2 specialized robots, including one with a moving claw, were deployed to the underground floors on Wednesday. This is the same year as this is their 14th anniversary this month, right? On the 11th. So how come we haven't seen anything about this? We cover everything. Workers will use them to carefully remove the sandbags, with the operation set for completion by the end of 2027. The sandbags, well, that's a long time away, will be stored in radioactive waste containers. Like these kind of numbers, you're going to have to put them in the so-called dry cast. As a temporary facility outside the buildings. Well, no direct deaths were attributed to the radiation at Fukushima. Really? That was interesting. Extreme increase of mortality by cardiac diseases. The death rates might give the creeps to some people. Just in a single month, there was an extra 12,700 people died of heart attacks. Because it's not just cancer, right? Tumors drove cardiac disease right through the roof. This was a spike never seen before. There was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. I just jumped the shark down. Not jumped the shark, but if you click 3 times, you get booted from your spot. There we go. Nuclear radiation, the most carcinogenic thing that is, if you get a single atom in your body attacks it for the rest of your life till it builds a tumor around it. It does that with white blood cells. And because it's in your body pulsing energy at the speed of light, it has to try to repair all the cells and chromosomes and DNA are being destroyed. Now, 35.8% of the Fukushima children have thyroid cyst or tumor. Well, these are tumors. There's 13,646 out of 38,200 with tumors around 2 centimeters. And so the adult under thyroid, the adult thyroid is, which means they're producing radioactive stem cell or hormones for the rest of their life, and by proxy, radioactive stem cells in their developing years on top of that, but also for the rest of their lives. How's that going to play out, I wonder? Like an adult's thyroid is 3 by 5 inches or centimeters. A child's is around 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. So they have a thyroid tumor the size of their thyroid on a child who's going to be developed until they're at least 24 years of age, producing radioactive hormones for their pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline glands and everything else, and which sends out the commands and the instructions for their development through their whole body. That's going to be even worse in the animal kingdom. Mammal kingdom, much more vulnerable than the humans. Radioactive material from the reactor is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And when you get it in your body, it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, and your bones. You're getting a dose trillions of times worse than what you would get if it was outside of you, because it's in your body, wrecking chromosomes and DNA and cells and permanent lesions to your organs. So imagine what's happening. You know, kids are 1,000 times more vulnerable than the adult. While no direct deaths were attributed to the radiation, it's completely dishonest. And so they said around 880 tons of highly radioactive debris remains inside the plant. So you're saying that there's only 1.9 million pounds inside. Really? Where's the rest of it gone? There's 36 reactor cores, which are 1.4 million pounds each. So where's the rest of it? How do they look in the mirrors? It's just the strangest thing. Robots. Where's the pictures of the robots? Why are you showing us a picture of tanks for? They're allegedly dismantling the tanks. Like, well, they're dismantling the tanks that were never filled up. They were filled up with fresh water. But, like, you can fill up to 1,000 tanks 6 times a day with a single reactor, because it typically needs 4,500 tons of water a minute, 1 million gallons a minute. Think of 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks coming past your front door every minute while your kid is trying to cross the road to the school bus. That's how much water in each reactor, each and every one of them. The tanks were put there to manipulate you and deceive you. You can't filter it because you can't change the filter. You can't get back in the building. And if you fill the tank up, you're talking about 1.4 million sieverts of just beta per tanks. So the tanks, even if they're 6 feet thick, they can't shield you. And that one, even if you did get through all of that, managed to do it, you still couldn't dismantle the tank because everything is so radioactive. Like that piece there would kill her with gamma shine from that far away. Or whoever that is holding up the piece of rope. You can't dismantle these tanks, right? You can do it, but it's going to harm a lot of people in the environment doing it. You're going to kill a lot of people trying to do it. Just a single tank. No, the tanks, like the Riva system, the ELP systems, the Siri systems, the alleged water filtration systems, the Riva, they didn't even try to use it. It was built strictly to get pictures and so that people become complacent. Let's keep trying to get through because I'm pretty rough here today. Dismantling of the J9 area tanks at TEPCO. And let's blame TEPCO instead of the nuclear industry, which is why this happened in the first place and why it continues to be worse in the second place. Robots will begin moving sandbags that were used to absorb radiation, contaminated water. Again, I'm surprised you put the word treated there that time. Sandbag surfaces are as high as 4.4 sieverts per hour. Well, that kind of stuff melts your organs, see? They melt, and there's no way to recover from that. Your infrastructure in your body is melting from the gamma shines, the neutron bombardment, the beta rays, the alpha shine, the X-rays. Humans can die if they approach them. They're not going to send. They're only going to send in the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and immigrants that don't speak the language. Nuclear scientists don't hang out on that side. I can tell you that much. You've seen the explosions. There's no way you'll get them on that side. There were 2,850 bags to be collected. That's the latest, greatest number, is it? And 2 robots developed to collect the bags. One with a moving claw. were on Wednesday placed on the underground floor. Where's the documentation of all of this? How come we haven't got any documentation whatsoever? 3 of the Fukushima 6 reactors went into meltdown. Really? That's the prominence it gets? Not even a sentence? Like, a meltdown is catastrophic. You cover the whole planet in radioactive fallout in 20 to 30 days that attacks everything with replicating cells. And the prominence it gets is half a sentence. Went into meltdown. Do you think the average person has any concept? They can expand on everything but the meltdown. They don't show you any pictures. No one was recorded as been directly killed by the nuclear accident. That might be true, but ain't because people didn't die. And there was 865,000 cancers in the first year. And whoever done that right there, they died that day in their paper suit. How can you send someone in there in a paper suit to a nuclear meltdown? How can you be that cruel? They're still going to die that day, but how can you be that cruel to do that to somebody, really? How can you be that heartless? How can you say there's $1,000 bonus for you? All you got to do is go spray that reagent over there. Nothing can hurt you, and then they die a few hours later or 20 minutes later. How can you be that disconnected, I wonder? 865,000 cancers. Not everybody got health care, I bet you. Not everybody was diagnosed, I bet you. Cancer ain't the only issue, by the way. Congenital heart disease operations rose 14.2%, which is 14,200 children need open heart surgery to congenital malformations per 100,000 live births for complex congenital heart disease in neonates and infants. But nobody was recorded as been directly killed by a nuclear accident. How many mothers couldn't afford congenital? Radioactive xenon-133 in Washington, United States, was 450,000 times above detection levels and persisted for weeks, which is interesting because it's such a short half-life. And if you got one, you got many, many others, right? My apologies. I'm still not back to normal. Going on 4 weeks, being sick. I am, though, doing better in some other ways. So, when you get really older, like us, like me, you'll start to, you might get red around your nose and face and stuff like that. You might even get skin flakes. You know what that's from? A lack of zinc. So if you take zinc a couple times a day for a week, that'll clear up and be gone forever. Crazy, isn't it? Zinc. Simple as that. And I know a lot of people that has that issue. But I went to the doctors for it about 6 different times. They couldn't figure it out. And then I seen that the zinc would resolve it. I tried it a week later. Everything's perfect. First time in years and years and years. Like the red around your face. That's a lack of zinc. Radioactive xenon-133 in Washington was up 450,000 times. But 11 atoms a kilogram, you start to see heart problems. But it was... So like when you got these types of numbers for just a single isotope, which happens to be a nasty one, by the way. There's another study, 220 million atoms of iodine-129 per liter. It was a Canadian study. So that's a 15 million year half-life. It's never going to go away. That's going to saturate the glands of all the insects and birds and mammals and animals. But children, as little as 11 atoms a kilogram. A Becquerel, a BQ, is the pulse of energy every second from the atom. And so you can't have 450,000 pulses of energy per square meter. Or is that cubic meter in this one? I can't remember. every second without an atom to pulse the energy. So the physical atom, because you can breathe the physical atom in, right? Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram. But 200 million on the head of a needle, you can't see it. How are you going to protect your kid from that? How does a cat or puppies get protected from that? How does birds and bees and everything else? What would you rather have, birds and bees or nuclear? Dirty, dirty nuclear. Nuclear is the most resource-intensive industry in human history. Robots deployed to clean radioactive Fukushima sandbags. No pictures. All the media is from medias we never heard of before. I think there was a Japanese media covered it last night or this morning or something. Yeah, there was one. But the first 2 days, it was just random medias that we've never even heard tell of before, which is bizarre. So they were just putting out their feeler gauges to see if there's going to be any blowback. Robots deployed to clear radioactive Fukushima sandbag in critical cleanup. Robots. Well, and they show you a picture, and this is not even Fukushima. It might be the Daini plant, though, but it's not Fukushima, which is the twin sister plant, right? It's not Fukushima. Left untouched an underground area of 2 reactor buildings. Well, you're not going into any buildings. You're not sending any robots in there either, because each building had 9 reactor cores melt down or blow up. And it doesn't just blow up, they blow emissions, the radioactive corium reactor cores down inside also. Excuse me. An aerial view taken from a helicopter on March 16th of the Medusa, the reactor 3, the plutonium X-oxide reactor. It ejected the reactor core and the fuel pool right into the buildings. And that explosion I showed you earlier, let me show it to you again, to your left. And the plume is from all the reactors. I mean, you had 4 reactors melt down. And this picture was circulating on March 15th. So there wasn't an academic or scientist on the planet didn't know and that the fuel pools had 8 reactor cores, because there's 2 fuel pools at the top of the buildings. Warned that surface radiation levels in the sandbags reached a lethal dose for humans, 4.4 sieverts. Again, they say no direct fatalities were linked. Yeah, and that's how cruel the nuclear industry actually is. It refuses to, man up, right? It doesn't have a person in the entire industry that the world can relate to. And it was 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. The plumes covered the entire planet. It had 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. It had 13,646 out of 38,200 children with thyroid tumors the size of their thyroids. You had 14,200 children out of 100,000 that needs heart surgery to correct congenital malformation from developing. But nobody died, eh? Really. There's actually a street there where 7 people dropped dead in the first year shopping. And inhaling just one hot particle can cause a cancer. Guess what? Everything in the plume is a hot particle. And you're not just cancer to worry about. Send us people who don't mind dying. Remember that video? 50 atoms per kilogram lead to irreversible lesions in the adults. Horses, and pets, and destroys children. Permanent holes in their hearts. How's that going to play out as they start to develop radioactive hormones, radioactive stem cells, holes in their heart? What's happening to the birds and the bees and the animals and the trees? Children with 11 Becquerels, irreversible heart damage. Plumes with 1 million atoms a kilogram, or per square meter. You got 1 million atoms a square meter, and children with 11 Becquerels a kilogram start to see heart problems. And you got 220 million atoms of radioactive fallout in Canada's study at Ottawa per liter rainfall. That doesn't go away for 150 million years. There's 10 half-lives, so 15 million years of half-life. These are numbers and they're never going to go away. That's the problem with radiation. It's always being released and never goes away. And irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram, and you got 220 million per liter falling on your country and your farms and your drinking water. How do you think that's going to play out over the next decade? Tokyo was brutalized, eh? Japan was brutalized, all of it. Tokyo, though, 500 trillion atoms a kilogram. Significant consequences for human health. What about the birds and animals and everything else, I wonder? This changes understanding of the disaster. No shit, Batman. A very high concentrations of hot particles in Canada, United States, May and April 2011, included plutonium and americium. Well, you can't have one without all the others. You got americium, you got neptunium, you got strontium, blah, 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 blah. The biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods, by the way, is the curium isotopes. So when you see 220 million atoms per liter, remember the biggest byproduct is curium isotopes. Curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. You can bring up the studies if you like, the plutonium isotopes. All the dogs died of multiple tumors just from the plutonium. Radiation levels on the U.S. West Coast spiked 1 million to 10 million times normal. That model is only based on 8 days, by the way. I showed you the longer version, right? No direct fatalities were linked to the nuclear breach. And all of these medias were just... we've never heard tell it before. It's like they're ghost media sitting there. The Gunma Prefecture top relocation destination ranking. And Fukushima was ranked in there too. And people think about moving to Japan. It's a very organized trying to move people in there, right? But the numbers in Tokyo was 500 billion atoms a kilogram. And Gunma, we know, is like 400,000 times just, not xenon, but krypton per square meter. Which means everything else landed, right? All them other places were incredibly radioactive. You can't decontaminate radiation fallout. It just can't be done. Japan picked up 30 million one-ton bags in one prefecture, but the food was still banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries for a decade. That never stopped Japan from growing it, shipping to other countries, and relabeling it. Right, at all. Japan's actually grown food right alongside the one-ton bags of radiation. Zero morals, zero standards. Canada is even worse, though. Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. Fukushima, Chiba, Hyogo prefectures also saw an increase in interest. Fukushima and Chiba, which is right by Tokyo, 20 kilometers from Tokyo. Depending, I guess, where you're to in Tokyo. Tokyo got 36 million people, metropolitan Tokyo. Chiba's got a lot of people too, see? And that, they grinded up 1 billion pounds of debris, radioactive debris in the Fukushima prefecture, and then shipped it to the incinerators right across the country. And so the ashes from that you couldn't even get rid of. You can't get rid of the water from the sediment from the water filtration facilities because it's so radioactive. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. I'm going to have to squirt me glasses. Damn glasses. So Fukushima saw an increase, did they? Of unsuspecting people who moved to Japan. And that was organized. They were paying subsidies for people to move in there from different countries on top of that. Non-profit center in Tokyo was working really hard to move people back into the nuclear wasteland. Rolls-Royce 10 foot. How come you haven't gone back to the moon for over 50 years? I'm just saying. Because they say they lost the technology, right? Like, your smartwatch is at least 100 times more powerful than the technology they were using back then. What do you mean lost the technology? What does that mean, man? They're just terrible people. We've been so complacent for so long, all these entities that we kind of covet it for some reason I'll never understand, have been seeded with the worst of the worst inbreeds humanity got to offer. Woo, doggy, I can see you now, sure. Wherever you tune on this planet, I can see you now. I should clean my glasses there. Not really. Close though, we're getting there. Rolls-Royce had me cracked up when I read this story. I'll get to it. We're almost there. I apologize for being early. It was early and not do a show at all. I'm not getting any younger. I'm under a lot of stress. Lunar nuclear reactor. 10-foot lunar nuclear reactor. Anybody think this is ever going to come to fruition? They show you the stupidest looking thing I ever saw. A micro reactor, different from a small modular reactor, so it's just pure propaganda. A micro reactor can provide 1 to 10 megawatts of power. Typically, a megawatt would power 1 million homes and businesses. Whereas a small modular reactor can, because first remember, this is Rolls-Royce we're talking about. A small modular reactor can have an energy output up to half a gigawatt. A gigawatt, like the criteria for a small modular reactor used to be 100 megawatts. Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And then they said, well, actually we can get 300 gigawatts out of it. Like that's almost the size of a small, large reactor, so to speak. But half a gigawatt is the size of a lot of the reactors on the planet currently, the old ones, right? These are huge city-sized sites. That's not a small modular reactor was something, the word modular, right? Where you can take it and join something onto it, put it on a transport truck and ship it somewhere. Like, you couldn't ship this with 30, 40, 50, 100 transport trucks. These are just large reactors. Because Rolls-Royce is pathetic. And again, this is not a small modular reactor. They don't have a reactor. They don't have an application into the regulatory agency. They don't have a design in. They don't have a license. They don't have a permit to build an experimental one, which is, they got to do all of that, right? There's another artist's impression of the Rolls-Royce, blah, blah, blah. Something that doesn't exist. Something that's not tangible. Something that they don't seem to be really working on at all. They had no problem taking $600 million from the UK to kickstart their small modular reactor business. They didn't even buy land. They just stole the money, that's all. They got no intentions of it. It's strictly about getting you to invest in something that is never going to come to fruition. Anything small modular reactors can do, geothermal can do. Right away. Small modular reactors will take you 10, 20, 30 years after you built an experimental one, get all the kinks out of it. World Bank may drop a ban on funding nuclear power. Look, we gave them all the money they ever wanted. We gave them all the equipment they ever wanted. We gave them all the best academics, all the universities. We gave them all the media. We gave them everything they ever wanted. 90% of the money goes to administration. How can an industry like that succeed, right? And since 2000 or 1990s, early 1990s, the gigawatt percentage on this planet basically hasn't changed only by 2 or 3 gigawatts. Last year, wind or solar was 660 gigawatts. And a gigawatt is enough typically to power 1 million homes and businesses. But just in a 12-month period last year, there was 660 gigawatts, which is equal to over 700 large nuclear plants, double the current amount of nuclear plants on the planet almost. Came online just 12 months. But geothermal is your solution. But there could be a problem with geothermal that, if you believe the crazies, geothermal is everywhere. You just got to drill deep enough. And we have that technology now just to evaporate the rocks down to where you need to be. Right, so no more chewing up bits at 5,000 meters if you don't choose to do it, right? The technology, they can also use pneumatic drills, pneumatic cutting tools where they just cut the rocks at 25,000 pounds per square inch. And then they have pneumatic hammers that'll smash that to pieces and the drill bit will come in behind that. But the technology is there. They just refuse to start doing it because the minute that geothermal replaces nuclear, it's over, right? Geothermal can replace all energies, no problem at all. And if you really want to do it, you just take 1,000 universities and they all work to solve any issue. But there is no issues. Any engineering company in any community can build a geothermal. And you only need 10 people to run it instead of 5,000. And so the minute that the world wakes up and understands that, they'll be dropping nuclear bombs the next day, I would imagine. See, the technology offers a green option for poor countries. Really. And then they show you a guy with a big mustache. Definitely doing better, though. Forecast for power demand surge on the back of artificial intelligence use. Forecast for power demand for artificial intelligence. And so we've been hearing that narrative for 7-8 months or something. That showed up all of a sudden, and then everybody was screaming that. And it's been that way ever since, right? Last 7 or 8 months. And artificial intelligence came out like a boom. Like, oh, we got to have nuclear because we got to have artificial intelligence everywhere. And nuclear is not the solution. Geothermal is the solution. So they're up to no good anyway, because that's all they're good for. Producing nuclear fusion fuel is banned in the United States for being too toxic, which is the plutonium mixed oxide fuel, right? Research allegedly developed a mercury-free method to isolate lithium-6 that is as effective as the conventional method. Lithium-7 usually requires liquid mercury, which is extremely toxic. Well, every facet of the nuclear industry is extremely toxic. Like the whole nuclear industry. But they're talking about reclaiming uranium and plutonium too. Just bear with me. Maybe I can make it a little bit easier for your brain here. Not guaranteeing anything, though. Remember, 15 container ships produce more pollution than all the cars on the planet, right? Maybe I'm getting stupid. Let me go this route. Yeah, I'll find it over here. This big pile. That's the only problem when you have this stuff for years and years and years. Is you accumulate so much you can't keep up with it, right? Well, you can keep up with it because that's the point of collecting it. You can tell the story. Hang on, I think we're there. Yeah, so like the nuclear fuel cycle is not just mercury. It's the whole fuel cycle is insane. Just to make the fuel. And then they're really good at doing this anyway. Look, they collected all the plutonium for all these These, and I got many pictures exactly like this in the United States. At one point, they had 55,000 silos. And so each of those red dots is a silo. And they're in a little tiny community. Most likely they're in the middle of some farmland. And they're all leaching tritium-3H, by the way. And each one of them is holding a community as a human shield. And so if China or the alleged... China's never went to war against anybody. And how long? Forever. Say if Russia attacks one of these missile sites. They're not going to tell you they attacked the missile site. They're going to say the Ruskies attacked our little community out in Timbuktu. Are we going to let them get away with it, or are you going to send your kids to war and fight them Ruskies? But all of them are, and there's many of these pictures where there's silos where they're holding people as human shields. There is no nuclear renaissance. What are you talking about, nuclear renaissance? You went backwards last year again with nuclear, and just solar was 660 gigawatts. There's like 660 nuclear plants coming online. Well, it's more than that because a typical plant is only about 0.8687 of a gigawatt. So around 700 large nuclear plants came online in renewables of just solar, not counting wind, not counting geothermal, not counting other storage technologies and everything else. Since then, almost all lithium-6 used in U.S. research has relied on a diminishing stockpile maintained at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee. And so what this is basically, that story is basically like a preamble to the industry trying to get the production of plutonium mixed oxide fuel removed, the restrictions on it. It's illegal in Canada and the United States. There is some legalese going on, though, here in Canada and the United States for the production of the plutonium mixed oxide fuel, which is what they want to use for the small modular reactors. But they got 100 companies, and every one of them got a different design. So after 80 years, what does that tell us? It's why are we wasting all our time and energy and effort and academics and everything else, and putting all of our eggs in the small modular reactor basket when they don't even have an application into the regulatory agencies with a design. So it's crazy. It's crazy to suggest that yeah, well, there like 1 in every 2 people got cancer right now, so there is an increase in cancer. Hang on. Like there's 865,000 cancers in the first year. So he says he's surprised there is no increase in lifetime risk of cancer since 3/11, according to the American Cancer Society. There was 865,000 extra cancers in Japan in the first year, but officially nobody died, right? There's 13,636 children out of 38,200 children with thyroid tumors the size of their thyroids, but nobody died. There's 300 police officers died of kidney failure, keeping people at a nuclear wasteland, but nobody died. 6 out of 10 Fukushima children have diabetes, but nobody died. Like, just because the Canadian Cancer and the Mayo Centre are run by the pro-nuclear. We've covered them, right? They're disgusting parasites. It's not just cancer. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. There's just an explosion of cancer. There's 2 million extra cancers, excess cancers. Right, there's 2 million excess cancers. Got it right there somewhere. Got the round glasses on for reading that one, I think. Yeah, it just came out. There's an extra 2 million cancers. 74% of the population in the United States is obese. 90% here in Canada. And obesity rates doubled in Japan after the first year. And obesity rates increase in a population statistically is considered, after a nuclear accident, is considered signs of radioactive brain damage. And that's significant brain damage when you're seeing the obesity rates double. But it's done way more than that here in Canada, because Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. And so I think you're not being honest. The Biden administration spent hundreds of billions of dollars to push renewables, and the result was a 30% increase in national utility prices. Hundreds of billions of dollars to push renewables, but they push it in the wrong direction, right? And yet, despite producing intermittent, expensive electricity, no amount of wind and solar can make rubber or plastic, or the millions of products we use, nor can they forge steel or produce cement. Yes, of course they can. Geothermal, for instance, you go down a few extra kilometers without... you go down, say, 6 or 7 kilometers. Typically, you're getting up to a 700, 800 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, which is hotter than gas, oil, or cold, or nuclear. So anything they can do. And then you can store energy many different ways too, right? Jasko made it his mission to shut down nuclear innovations at every turn. He voted against opening any new nuclear power plants and famously went so far as to call for a global ban on nuclear power. Yeah, because he was in charge during Fukushima. They made him lie about it, and he had pains of conscience. Giving him a platform to continue to promote his extreme views is baffling, but Fukushima is responsible for an extinction event, for goodness sakes. There's an extra 2 million cancers in the United States in 2024. An excess, an extra, a spike. I wonder what it could be. Same activists who falsely claim to support green energy are actually lobbyists promoting unreliable wind and solar as the only acceptable energy option. Yeah, that's on purpose. They leave geothermal out, right? They leave different types of storage out, like compressed air storage, where you just dig mine shafts and compress air down in the mine shaft. Like, it's unbelievable efficient too, right? It's not like 78% efficient. Nuclear is like 3% or something. And there's water batteries where you dig 2 great big aquifers and you just pump water, you fill them both up, so to speak, and you pump water from the bottom one to the top one with excess energy, which can power your city for weeks at a time if you had to. But if you're using geothermal, you back it up with compressed air storage or water batteries, and then you can come in now with some wind and solar, because it's so efficient now, see? If you put your windmills on the hills, mountains, where the wind blows all the time, you wouldn't have too many problems, would you? Pushing back against fear-mongering anti-nuclear activists. I back all my documentation up. I'm not a fear-monger. I'm a researcher. I do field studies all the time. We've done 6 years, 4 to 5 months on the ocean at a time after Fukushima, doing species counts. It is what it is. If they're not there, they're not there. If they're there, they're there. They'll show up. And we provide GPSs constantly in all the pictures themselves. The golden age of nuclear is here if we're willing to seize it. Well, that's what you said in the 1990s, and it still hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. There is no golden age. The golden age is 90% of the money the nuclear industry gets is steals for administration. In other words, they steal it. It's a failed industry every step of the way, too. DTE Energy, 40-year-old Fermi 2 nuclear power plant begins a 20-year license renewal. So they just got a 20-year license renewal. They actually got a meltdown on that site at the Rico Fermi plant. They show you pictures, of course. There's your picture. Surrounded by farms and fresh water that feeds 25,000 other farms. Muonic atoms unlock new possibilities in nuclear physics. So they spend all this energy time. They've studied every more man-made anthropogenic isotopes than nature by many, many orders of magnitudes. Australia, right? This one. Clearing the way for new nuclear physics experiments. I mean, these are nut jobs, no matter how you look at it. Yeah, this is not supposed to be right there. That's from my die-off stories. Over 1,000 sea lions, dolphins are getting sick. I gotta put that in my other pack. Millions of fish killed this winter at Bruce nuclear plant. Millions of fish at the Bruce nuclear plant. That's Canadian. 4.5 million fish just in the last 3 months. And so this is a public relation stunt, this story right here. In the statement, the natives, the Shaggy Ojibwe Nation Environment Office said this event raises concern about the artificial environment for aquatic life at the Bruce nuclear power site. Bruce nuclear power acknowledges a large number of fish died after getting trapped in their intake system since the middle of January. It was so concerning, the company shut down one of the reactors for a week and a half. No, they didn't shut it down because it was concerning. They shut it down because the intake pipes were blocked by dead carcasses. So they framed that sentence there as if they were worried about the fish. They're not worried about the fish at all. Bruce Power said the fish have been removed and the unit is back up and in service. So that's quite the departure from. It was concerned the company shut down one of their reactors for a week and a half. But as you read through the story, once they removed the fish, they're back in business. So they're still trying to determine exactly what led to the die-offs, but said they're not alone. Well, they just acknowledged that they died in their intakes. 4.5 million of them. There have been reports along the shoreline as far north as south as indicated could be a population level event. So now they're suggesting that there's so many of them. This is likely due to their high rate of reproduction. Really? Well, why are you reporting on it instead of fisheries and oceans and that? Observed in Lake Huron, including around Bruce Power. No, nuclear is an extermination machine. And warmer lake water temperatures in the last couple of years, says Bruce Power, the last couple of years. So they're just showing their shitty underwear at the wall, waiting for something to stick. Gizzard sheds are naturally sensitive to cold water temperatures. Well, they wouldn't be there if they were, because Ontario's a cold country. Ontario's brutal cold temperatures. So if they were naturally sensitive to cold water, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't exist here in Canada. They're genetically superior selection. That's why they exist there, see? Said they're working with federal authorities to try to get the root of the fish kill. Well, they acknowledge that the fish died getting trapped in the intake system. Right? But if you're just glancing, you might miss that kind of stuff. So they're working with federal authorities to try to get the root of the fish kill. They died because Bruce needs 1 million gallons a minute, 4,500 tons of water a minute per reactor for their disease factory. So they're working with the federal authorities to try to get. It's just sad that they. And then they threw in some dead birds, and then, right, to confuse everybody and get them talking about botulism and avian influenza. Like they checked the millions of dead common murres and the 1.4 million dead Cassini auklets. They were trying to blame that on domoic acid for years. When the report finally came out, there was no domoic acid. You had over 1 million common murres, which feed on anchovies and squid and sardines and krill. They dive 600 feet all day long for a joke. Showing up emaciated. I was out on research expeditions while this was happening. And so at the same time you had the Cassini auklets, which are very tiny birds, and they're microscopic eaters. So you had 1.4 million of them showed up emaciated. So you had two different spectrums of the food chain feeders, mobile aerial feeders, on their migratory route showing up emaciated over a vast distance. What does that tell you? The food chain is broken. Bruce Powers said the Ministry of Environmental Canada, Nuclear Safety Commission, Ministry of Natural Resources are aware, are part of the investigation what led to the dead fish and waterfowl. So right away, they throw the big turd into the punch bowl. The birds died somewhere else. They shouldn't be part of this story or equation because that's just dishonest journalism. But I mean, they threw all kinds of junk into this to conflate it with everything when it simply didn't have any foundations for that, right? Oh, listen to Smarty Panster. Well, listen, why are you fixated on cancer? It's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. Why are you here doing that, I wonder? I'm tired of you. Like he's doing the same thing as this media is doing with their stories. He's just throwing cancer around as if cancer's and then hard cases, eh? Remember, there's heart problems, there's liver problems, there's lung problems, there's respiratory, pituitary, thyroid. You know what happens when your thyroid is radioactive? You know what happens when your stem cells are all radioactive? You can't just say cancer. It's such a dishonest. Not everybody's diagnosed. Not everybody got health care. 3.5 to 4.5 million gizzard shads. Large number of fish. Well, yeah, they're 512. Hang on here. Well, it wasn't just humans getting cancer, by the way. Right? Like the plot of a summer horror flick all along the Canadian Pacific coast, mussels are dying by cancer tumors. Every species out there had cancer tumors that were going from species to species, unprecedented. We're jumping from species to species. But it's not just cancer for humans and animals and insects. We're seeing children with friggin' dementia, 2 years old with dementia. Because that's what radiation does. See, radiation wiped out all these species. It wasn't just cancer. But that's some story, right? Unprecedented mutation of cancer tumors, allowing cancer to spread from one species to another like a virus. And the species are wiped out. And they're blaming it on cancer. So yes, there's a massive, unimaginable increase of cancer. The documentations of the radioactive fallout is unassailable. It's incontestable. It's undeniable. Don't come in trying to fool everybody with your propaganda. I don't appreciate it at all. You ignored everything I said and all the stuff I showed. And then you tried to manipulate the numbers. It's just a despicable thing to do. And I work really hard here to be honest and sincere and genuine and provide the facts. And your little worms come out there and attack me, crawl out of your little dungeons, your mom's basements, and attack me when I'm trying to provide the documentation. I don't appreciate it at all. So here's how nuclear kills fish. This is another story. How nuclear kills fish. Think of now. This was May the 1st, 2011. The environmental agencies of New Jersey, New York now require their largest water users, nuclear plants, to either install modern cooling systems in order to prevent the death of billions of fish. This is just a couple of plants. There's 400 plus of them out there doing the exact same thing. Don't forget that as you hear this story. Billions of fish each year. The aging plants have a devastating impact on surrounding fish populations. Environmental analysts in the two states have found that these facilities kill more than 17 billion fish annually in New York and 9 billion more in New Jersey. Doesn't stop there. This is just two plants we're talking about, okay? Kill more than 17 billion in New York and 9 billion in New Jersey. There's 23 billion fish, egg layers. Affected species including the Atlantic sturgeon, the endangered Atlantic sturgeon, which returns to the Hudson River each year to spawn. Sea turtles are sucked into the cooling system Oyster Creek and Solemn nuclear generating stations. The National Marine Fisheries Service has found that once through the cooling systems are vacuum up trillions of newly hatched fish and destroy them in their heat exchangers. Trillions of newly hatched fish, trillions, and destroy them in heat exchangers. And there's strong evidence that the decline in the fish stocks along the entire northern Atlantic seaboard is due more to the destruction of the baby fish than the overfishing of the adults by the commercial fleets. And that the Indian Point plant at Hudson River sucks in 2.5 billion gallons of water a day, killing about 2 billion juvenile and mature fish a year in the screens of the thermal plant. And the NRC estimated more than 300 billion baby fish are killed each year when they're sucked into the 40-foot. Now, that's each plant is capable of doing this. Not only that, you're boiling 1 million gallons a minute to produce energy by splitting atoms, no less. And so a glass of water got 1 billion creatures in it. So it's killing per minute 16 million billion creatures a minute. Eggs and larvae and small fries and everything else. 16 million billion per reactor. These are nasty, nasty. And think about nasty. Think about this story. This is an absurd story, by the way. This is a story that just came out a few days ago. Idle New Brunswick Power plant threatens to post the worst operational year in 4 decades. All I can say is thank God. Thank God it's down for a little while. Because the Point Lapour plant, nuclear power plant here in Canada, New Brunswick, legally, because it can't contain it, releases 16 million trillion atoms of tritium-3H legally a year because they can't contain it. Now, that number would normally be a massive nuclear event. Canada said, well, they can't get rid of us, so we're going to make it legal. And then they came out with all kinds of deceit and dishonesty and deception to try to justify it, and no dissenting voices are allowed because the nuclear industry has never been held accountable a single time in their 80-year legacy. And now, after generations of inbreeding, they're completely out of control. Right? They feel like they're entitled to kill everything that is normal. Well, we're a nuclear industry. That's what we do. We kill everything. So, my parents were scumbags. His parents, their parents were scumbags, and I'm going to be a scumbag when I get out of college. That's how they think. Is working what may turn out to be the poorest operation of the year in 42-year history of the biggest disease factory on the planet. It produces more tritium-3H radioactive fallout. The estimated pregnant women within a few miles of the site would be 1 million atoms per kilogram, or 1 million atoms in their bodies at least, with a 120-year lifespan of tritium, and it's never stopped releasing. So you have this bioaccumulation in the entire ecosystem. New Brunswick Power's fiscal year ends on March 31st, and the latest shutdown means the plant may finish the year having operated for as few as 101 days. Thank goodness, because the releases actually in Canada, like the releases in the UK Sizewell was 8 trillion atoms a year of tritium-3H. Canada's releasing legally, and the top ones are the Canadian plants. You can see how even Pickering, which is just a nightmare amount, dwarfs all of France, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, United Kingdom combined, dwarfs it in releases. Like it's the most insane story imaginable, because the Canadian reactors, except for Point Lepreau, are all on the Great Lakes, the third biggest aquifer on the entire planet. Why would you do something like that? You can't contain it, so that's insidiously evil. And the reason that the Point Lepreau allegedly is allowed to release so much is because it's not the drinking water for millions of people, they say. Which makes you wonder, if the Point Lepreau can't contain it, is that the real number for the other Canadian CANDU reactors? Because they're all the same, right? The CANDU Canadian reactors were produced to make tritium for the nuclear weapons, because tritium-3H in nuclear weapons increases their nuclear weapon power by who knows how much, right? It's dozens into the megatons. They go Nagasaki was 15 kilotons. If you add tritium to that, you could have been up to a megaton, which is 1,000. It's like 300 Nagasaki bombs going off at one time, basically. Not including the year Lepreau was offline between 2008 and 2013 for a $2.5 billion refurbishment. Thank goodness it was down. Look at the releases in Canada are catastrophic to the Atlantic Ocean and eastern seaboard minimum. Not just in Canada, but the United States too. Because you're right on the border. You're right there in New Brunswick. In February, New Brunswick Power President Laurie Clark told MLAs the fortunes of the utility are largely dependent on how well or poorly the nuclear disease factory performs. Because they just burn money. Like, see, the problem with them was a typical nuclear plant will spend $100 million a year on maintenance. I don't know if that's per reactor or something, but it's $100 million number was out there, right? They were only spending $5 or $10 million on maintenance. And so they ran, because they were expecting the plant to go offline after 30 years, which was the original charter. IAEA will support Zapatophoria, whatever agreement is reached. As long as it's nuclear, IAEA don't care. They'll support everybody. They show you that picture, but they don't show you this picture of all the farmlands right across the river. Proposed nuclear power plant in Queensland could not access enough water to prevent a meltdown. That don't give you the woolies what to... Proposed nuclear power plant in Queensland, Australia, could strain the capacity of drinking water irrigation supplies, even on their normal operation. They've been going for... Everybody's going for all these droughts post-Fukushima, because the Fukushima event covered the whole planet with blanketed the whole planet with a massive amount of radiation from 36 reactor cores. That killed most of the biota. So the earth, the meadows, the woods, the forests are not breaking down the foliage and the litter anymore. And so the ground's not, you need that to soak up water, see? and to break down the foliage in the litter. And what happens if you don't break down the foliage in the litter after a few years, that's tinder dry. And the ground is really hot because you can go out and find all these ants' nests in the ground and you can stick your arm down in there. I done it on video a few years ago. Just get off, you're driving down on the quad, down the back roads on research field trips, and you see an ant's nest, get it and stick your arm right down into it because you know there's no ants there because the whole forest is tinder dry. The ground is tinder dry. So it doesn't soak up water. So when you have big rainfalls, it just turns into a flash floods. And by proxy, when you have lightning strikes, the foliage in the litter that didn't break down would normally be broken down because of the biota, which is destroyed because of the radioactive full-body X-rays in the forest from the gammas, the neutrons, the betas, the alphas. We know this from Chernobyl, by the way, also. But we know this because of the field research expeditions. So the foliage in the litter normally shouldn't exist and is tinder dry. When the lightning strikes, it is big chunks wafer up and float 1,000 feet and settle down again. With this big little bonfire will settle down. And you can't contain a forest fire like that because that's not the cycle of life. Post Fukushima, we see all these supercell typhoons, supercell cyclones, supercell hurricanes, supercell tornadoes, because we have that particular attribute to deal with now, and it's just going to get worse. And you knew this. This was emblematic of the nuclear industry's entire legacy, right? Proposed nuclear power plants in Queensland would not have enough access to enough water to stop a nuclear meltdown. Well, you need 1 million gallons a minute as it is. 4,500 tons, 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks every minute. Try crossing the street with 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks driving past you every minute. You kind of understand it. Public debate on nuclear weapons began in Canada, the Globe and Mail, of all people. The scum of the scum. So why would they invoke that Canada needs nuclear weapons? First off, you got any idea how much money it takes to run this nuclear weapon industry? It's absurd. And so, like, what Trudeau done to us is just disgusting. What the current Prime Minister is doing to us, he hadn't lived here for 10 years, and he shows up and he's the Prime Minister. Part of the World Banking. Part of the World Economic Fund. No, nothing suspicious going on there. Nuclear power would steal agricultural drinking water, require emergency storage for irradiated water. So, like, they're using Fukushima's numbers as if it's real or something of the water. You have to go into my playlist to get up to speed on that. XL Monticello nuclear power plant has a valve problem, control valve problem, really. If you look at what they got away with 2 years ago, they were building a barrier to protect the Mississippi River when it was minus 30. So you had frost, right, down 6 feet in the ground at this time, dead of winter, when they lost 400,000 gallons of radioactive material. They said it was treated, but there's no pipes at the Monticello Nuclear Disease Factory, nuclear power plant, that only carries tritiated water. And this is what they were claiming was released. And they had to shut down the site, which meant it was a high-pressure line. Otherwise, they could have repaired it, right? Which meant this was high-level nuclear waste that was getting out. This was stuff from the reactor core that got out. They didn't tell you for 4 months. They waited 4 months before they told you, so people downstream couldn't check the water when the massive pollution was coming through. Ukraine had plans to blow up nuclear plants. I was reading that last night. I was like, nothing surprises me anymore. Blowing up nuclear power plants to deny them to Russia if Ukraine started losing in the conflict. That's just like, you piece of shit, man. The United States tried to prevent a nuclear catastrophe rather than simply seizing the facility for its own benefit. They were trying to seize this. The media came running out with the story. The American wanted to seize all the nuclear power plants in Ukraine, just so they can demonize Trump, right? Because their useful idiot didn't get elected. Do you know about our plans to blow up all the nuclear power plants if Ukraine starts losing the war? It's Can you imagine what that would do to your planet? On the principle, we all bite the dust, but so will they. It will just poison Ukraine, blow up all nuclear power plants, then nobody can have it. And Ishiba cabinet support rates at 27.6%. The lowest since he's took in office. They go through a prime minister every year or two in Japan. I don't even know. Oh. Hey, I can't believe we made it again through another show. Life is good. Life is good. Let me get back on track here. Alrighty. Remind people that this is an expensive operation I'm running. And we're struggling to keep this operation running. So if anybody can donate, there's 2 links below. Prefer you donate through PayPal, and PayPal will accept all credit cards. You don't need an account to donate. And I just hate asking, but I don't know how else to keep this whole operation moving forward, right? If we don't raise money, this thing falls apart. All right. James has got another song here. My goodness. How cool is that? That's amazing. So this one just came out. I'm going to adjust the volume on my side. I'm going to turn the volume off first. And click on it. I'm going to hit pause. Try to make sure it's in high quality. Looks like we are. I'm going to come in and cover up or close the poll after. So if you can vote on the poll, now is a good time. And so if the volume jumps, I'm going to control it for you on my side. Have a great night. If you make it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We'll see you on the next show. Hugs for everybody.
Palisades deactivated, now reframed, recertificated. No redesign, just reassigned. Restarted to preserve the line. Palisades, steam line flag, sleeve to patch, inspection lag, reactor silent, status gray, containment thin, decay in play. Cracked alloy test delayed, timeline force review outweighed, cooling metrics off the chart, sleeves engaged, restart the heart. Red line crossed, protocol wide. Restart pending, defects hide. Sleeved for containment, call it clean. Palisades runs behind the screen. Pressure builds, reports align. Safety skipped on borrowed time. Stress mapping failed, welds fatigued. Timeline short, capacity, breach sleeve alloy new. Legacy known, approval right, the damage grown. Palisades, structure thin, every crack file deep within. Deferral plan marked as norm, test results kept off the form. Palisades revision 3, metrics pass but fail to be. Charted lines say risk is small, sleeves hold up the final wall. Sleeved for containment, signed to last. Restart cells a troubled past. Palisades still called secure. Restart shown, no warning in tone. Containment sealed, but Palisades remains unknown.